Before the first waves of landing craft even reached the beaches of Normandy, thousands of men were already behind enemy lines, their mission to disrupt, to confuse, and to capture and hold ground in key locations until the main force arrived by sea under Operation Neptune. Their success was crucial to ensuring the beach landings were not met by devastating counterattacks and artillery. For the airborne forces, D-Day began in darkness, and for many, it would end there too. Each aircraft tasked with transporting this initial force carried not just men, but critical information and equipment, radios, maps, and individuals vital to the landings below. If even one plane went down, an entire piece of the invasion could unravel. Operational secrecy was such that not everyone knew the finer details, as will become terrifyingly apparent later in this video. This is the story of Stick 66 and the baptism of fire of Lieutenant Richard Winters, belonging to Easy Company of the 506 PIR, 101st Airborne, later known as the Band of Brothers. Since the beginning of time, armies clashed with their feet firmly fixed to the ground or the deck of a ship. World War II would change that. Now men could fall from the sky to wherever planes could get them to. D-Day up until this point was the largest airborne operation ever attempted, involving 15,500 Americans and almost 8,000 British troops that would be landed either by glider or parachute into Normandy. Some units suffered very few casualties, but others suffered terribly, especially the Americans dropping in and around the Cotentin Peninsula. As is the risk with airborne landings, some were killed before even touching the ground, their descent having to be carefully controlled so as not to cause injury upon landing. However, this made them easy targets, and the rules of war state that you can engage falling paratroopers, with the only exception being if they're trying to escape a damaged aircraft. Others would drown in merely inches of water in the flooded marshes, weighed down by almost half their body weight or more in equipment. The lesser talked about casualties in the sky were those where their planes fell victim to anti-aircraft fire, all but one, a lead plane, that set off before midnight from Upottery Airfield in Devon on the night of the 5th of June, destined for Drop Zone C north of Sainte-Marie-du-Mont, and to lead the way in the capture of Causeways 1 and 2 on Utah Beach, to allow the passage off the beach by the ground troops landing there. Stick number 66 did make the journey, but after being hit by flak, it crashed into a small hamlet called Beuzeville-au-Plain. It hit a hedgerow and exploded. The fire was so intense that it smouldered for several days, and no one was pulled from the wreckage, only artifacts like helmets, watches, and what remained of their weapons. Easy Company of the 506th Parachute Infantry Regiment, 101st Airborne that it belonged to, would end up losing the majority of its senior leaders and the majority of its casualties in the Battle of Normandy in one incident, not to mention the majority of their documentation and maps to support the battles to come. Events like this would lead to the dispersion of men with rank amongst the men without, to avoid such a disaster happening again. At the time, First Lieutenant Winters of Easy Company would assume command, in lieu of Lieutenant Meehan, who was on Stick 66. He would later find out that this position would become permanent. Under the command of Winters, Easy Company would take part in several major battles in Normandy, including the famous battle here at Brecourt Manor, the destruction of an artillery battery of 4 105mm howitzers firing directly at Utah Beach. The assault at Brecourt Manor battery is actually used as a case study to this day, teaching American officers at West Point. It was a textbook example of a frontal assault on a fixed position by an inferior force. The assault wasn't just courageous, it was tactically perfect. Winters' use of small unit tactics, flanking maneuvers, and suppressive fire became a thing of legend, and was later portrayed in an explosive opening scene during the Normandy section of the hit series Band of Brothers, solidifying Winters' position amongst not only his superiors and the men he now commanded, but the history books. Winters was known for his calm under pressure and discipline. Members of Easy Company later recall Winters walking the line after missions, ensuring every man was accounted for, a small but defining glimpse into not only his focus on the mission at hand, but also the welfare of his men. Qualities that would define Easy Company's performance throughout the war. His leadership on D-Day and the battles that followed became a model of initiative and courage. that would carry Easy Company from Normandy to the Eagle's Nest at Berchtesgaden. Later, Easy Company would be involved in and around the Battle for Carentan before returning to England at the end of June to refit for their next missions that would take them into Holland, the Battle of the Bulge, and eventually Germany. In the Battle of Normandy alone, Easy Company would experience a 47% casualty rate, including 22 killed, the majority in the crash of Stick 66, and another 43 wounded.